However, I'll link to two videos for you right now if you need a hand with anything. My video that basically covers this whole process with GameHub Lite, and this video by the creator of Game Native. He covers all the Game Native settings if you need help getting your games working. Let's do a quick 1-minute Game Native tutorial. Download the Game Native installer APK from the official GitHub and install it. Once you're installed, you'll need to log into Steam. Use the Authenticator app and the QR code login. Once you're in, you can also go into your settings and add your Epic Games and GOG Games accounts on devices you can run.
And it's a big one.
This works best on a device that has a chip that has community-made custom GPU drivers. There's a community-run project called the Turnip Drivers, which you can use to give you better compatibility and more performance for any device using a Snapdragon chip. If you have a device with a different chip, like a Amberlith device or an older retro handheld with a Snapdragon chip, you can still do this. With the same performance and compatibility boost as the custom Snapdragon drivers. It's still totally worth trying though. Lots of stuff will work. Really, if you haven't.
It feels much tighter because the moveset has been polished to make jumping and gliding feel more responsive than ever. For instance, the reptile roll is a great way to gain speed and knock enemies out of your path while you explore the jungle. The truth is that the world is packed with so many secrets that you will probably spend hours just trying to find every single feather and coin. Here's the kicker, because the entire soundtrack was re-recorded by a full orchestra to give the music a much more epic feel. Still, the humor is just as goofy as it always was, and you will run into plenty of weird characters who need your help. You are basically going on a massive treasure hunt that feels like a love letter to the golden age of 3D platformers. This is the definitive way to experience this adventure, and it proves that the mascot platformer genre is still alive and kicking. Sword of the Sea. So this one is from Giant Squid. Same team.
But the sad part is, the Steam Deck is kind of big. If only I had a little mini Steam Deck. Good news, Tech Dweeb. There's a way you can get the Steam Deck experience with you anywhere, anytime, on one of your little pocket-friendly Android handhelds. Are you my conscience? No, Tech Dweeb. I'm just a voice you're hearing, even though you're literally by yourself, alone in your room. It's really quite worth thinking about it. Okay, so do you want to like hang out? Maybe watch Lord of the Rings and play Magic the Gathering or something? Tech Dweeb,
Everything is bathed in these deep oranges and reds that make the forest look beautiful but also kind of suffocating. You're hiking through these canyons and climbing over rocks, and it's just you and your thoughts. Which is the kicker, because the game isn't really about the mystery at all. It's about why Henry is there in the first place. It's a bold choice to make a game where the ending doesn't give you a massive explosion or a boss fight, but it paid. I've also appreciated how they didn't compromise on the grounded nature of the story. It's one of those just one more day type of situations where you just need to know what happens next. Monsters. All that to say, this is the best horror game we have seen in a long time. Keep the lights on if you do not want to see these things when you close your eyes. Neva. Everything about Neva feels like a moving painting because it comes from the same team that made Grease. You start off as Alba, who is bonded to this majestic wolf cub, and you both have to navigate a world that is literally rotten. The combat is surprisingly tight and snappy, which is great since the platforming requires some pretty precise timing. Honestly, the way the wolf grows up throughout the game
adding it to the EST downloaded media folder for your Steam games. And make sure the file name is the same as your .steam file. One last thing, in EST, you're going to want to pick which app launches your PC games. Go to Other Settings, Alternate Emulators, Steam, and then you can pick GameHub Lite or Game Native. You can also pick this on a per game basis. One game that only works in GameHub.
You guys gotta go away.
Or vice versa. You can press select on that game, go to edit metadata, and you can pick an alternate emulator just for this one where needed. You also get demos and family share games, you get your DLC and cloud saves. It's all done for you. You just have to pick what to play and play it. It's easy as heck. And we all know how easy hack is. But here's the thing with these Android doodads. Along with the Steam games, and the Android games, and the retro games, you also get all the other conveniences of Android, like the battery efficiency. Lots of these Android handhelds are devices. They just last forever. And they often have fast charging, so it's easy to top them up. You get an amazing sleep mode. You can tap the power button while you're playing.
Help a little bit, don't get me wrong. You know, they add this like curve to the back here, and I like the way they feel, but still, they don't like fix the problem. And the problem is that every handheld is this big now, no matter which one it is. I think the other handheld to push everything in this direction was the Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck is also gigantic. When the Steam Deck came out, everyone was like, that thing is huge, and it looks very silly. I mean, the D-pad is like hanging off of one side almost, and so is the B button on the other side. But at the very least, look at those grips. They got some big grips. So there's a show that I co-host called Into the Aether, where every year we'll play like every great game from a console's library and then talk about it for hours and hours and hours. So if you want to hear me and my co-host talk about the PSP and every great game on the PSP for about 7 hours, the link's in the description. Regardless, I've just been really blown away by the games I'm playing on the PSP. This thing that folds up into and fits in my pocket very easily. And the experiences and the games you have here are just as fun now as they were in the early 2000s when they came out. I think they're interesting cultural form factors, and it's really cool to see. Like if you've ever been playing the Game Boy Micro and you thought to yourself, man, what if I could play PS1 games on here? Well, guess what? Ambernick has you covered with the RG28XX. If you're like me and you were obsessed with the PlayStation Vita and you've always wanted something that looks exactly like the PlayStation Vita that plays up through the Nintendo Switch, for example, you can get the Ein Odin 2 Mini. There are just a lot of handhelds out there, but they're built for any
Charm that they all had, especially compared to now. They definitely weren't all fantastic, but when I look back at them, they all just seem so whimsical and wonderfully simple to me. And sure, you know, that opinion is probably largely shaped around nostalgia, and it's more likely I miss the simpler times of my life, which we'll talk about nostalgia at the end of the video, but I do mean this literally. I adore the simplicity of the games from this era. When I talk about a time when video games were simple, I think exactly what you have to do to fix this problem. You go through a couple of levels, you get us really hooked in, and then you give Ellie a fishtail, and you have her swim around and sing a really bad song with Ariel from The Little Mermaid. And the song's gotta be really, really bad. It's gotta be horrible. No, you're right, you can't do that. It's a serious game with a serious tone. We don't need to do any of that. You know, no game has ever retained its serious tone while breaking immersion slightly.
It's gonna work out really late.
I know, I always do. Seems like.
Well, movie night for Riley tonight.
With the media you consume, then you'll probably have like a negative attention span. When I first stopped scrolling and cut out most of my screen time, I realized something. The issue wasn't really the screens, it was the reason behind why I was using them. I wanted to consume meaningful media, but I never did, because it was just so much easier to scroll instead of booting up a game. So in this video, I'm going to go over the 6 games you can play instead of scrolling, and also how to replace brain rot with things that actually change how you think. That way you can actually feel present and enjoy the things you want to. To ever make me almost cry, or somehow end up in a fantasy world. And Breath of the Wild feels just like that. For me, this game made me want to go outside in nature more often, and appreciate the wildlife around me. Part of what makes this such an excellent game is its emphasis on freedom. The game doesn't really force you to do anything. You just wander around and interact with what you want. Unlike in a linear game, you aren't forced to go to this point or find this thing. Any game that gets to appreciate what's around you and spend more time in nature is a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. Even that is not for me, because appreciating the world is one thing.
The last couple of levels are hung up on a story that I don't think is all that interesting, and it would have been nice to see Pillow Castle take more time to explore some of its ideas thoroughly. It often feels like it's only scratching the surface of its own potential. Still, if the game can have a big bitch like me grinning from start to maybe it'll do that for you.
If you don't like that I don't want to crunch, you're going to let me go and I'll help you out of the job.
This is Chris the Dad. Or, yeah, that's his username.
I was brought on as the only animator for a season of a show.
Oh my god. He's chosen to share his experience under the condition that certain details, such as where he worked, remain undisclosed. This is not only because I blacklist him for telling the truth, but because the company he worked for can also overtime. They're on a salary, meaning that no matter how many hours they worked, their paycheck's gonna look the same at the end of the month either way. Best case scenario, when the game finally ships, it gets a 93 on Metacritic and they get a little bonus. Hell, maybe they even get offered a permanent position. That way the next time they're used to, they actually get paid for it. Worst case, the contract runs out. Around the same time this article came out, Jason Schreier booked the story of Anthem's troubled development.
You know, be cohesive sentiments on it all, but I think that is very contrary to what the community of gamers how they feel.
Liz Alex is a co-founder and creative director at Stress Level Zero, an indie game studio responsible for VR games Hoverjumpers, Duck Season, and he's also a workaholic. We talked about stuff over the course of a 4-hour-long interview, but something that kept coming back to the unpredictability of making knowledge that leads gamers to say so much stupid shit all the time. Like, Jesus Christ. But this insane internet noise can have a real effect on how games are marketed, how they're made, and the people behind them. Now, as per... Hey! Yeah. As per the contract, I am legally required into a project you're jazzed about. Before you know it, you're burnt out, you feel like shit, and you hate everything you work on. Some would argue that for management to explicitly seek out super enthusiastic workers is inherently predatory, because young passion is easy to exploit.
The PR bullshit I hear a lot is like, we're looking for somebody who's extremely passionate about this work. And that's like, okay, you want to just exploit them. Here's the thing about that though.
In a passion-filled industry, who doesn't want passion? It's a double-edged sword. You need people who really care about the work they do, because the more they care, the better their work will be. But unless that drive is kept in check, it quickly becomes self-destructive.
You guys could put team later, and they're like eating at their desk, and they're sleeping under their desk, and they're really important in making a game. Not dying, shipping, and making money. In that order. And there's a reason why staying alive is first on that list. You know, might seem obvious, you can't be creative if you're dead, right? But I've seen relationships break up, I've seen people literally go insane because of the pressure. It's just ridiculous. So stay alive, stay healthy.
I'm gonna keep the
It's not yours. Give me my goose back.
better things. Case in point, WRT Evolved is really, really good. It handles great, it looks amazing, it's full of personality. I especially love the new navigator, it's always got some shit. Around the game where your opponents break down ahead of you, your navigator orders you eat shit. And then get consoled by said navigator for eating shit. Final entry after themselves.
Just like how Metallica stopped making fellow Europeans who knew only of Gran Turismo blowing themselves up because they thought the cross button meant would not blow up.
Yeah, we say cross button here. What are you gonna do about it, you mean?
After securing the launch edition of PlayStation 3,
The one with the whole ass piss station 2 in it?
from MediaMarkt and an extra 6-axis controller,
The one that fucking sucked?
my dad and I popped in our Motorstorm disc, bursting with this.
Sure.
The graphics, the sound, the music. Is the second controller on? It is.
Video game. Evolution took all the tools they built and all
Alright,
the
watch
skills
out.
they learned in 5 years
Okay.
making rally games, threw on some drum and bass, and slapped together an absolute banger video. I don't know how much time they had to make this, but just right when the last WRC came out, it couldn't have been long, which just makes the fact that it's functional all the more impressive. And the fact that it fucking rules. But at higher levels, with no name,
Hi.
and you're European, maybe, you aren't just rewarded, you are
That said, it's far from a perfect game. The campaigns of a launch title are on full display, sometimes in ingenious ways, like with